Shaitanirajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Risale-i-Nur weekly Quranic wisdom study after a break, a beautiful break during Ramadan with Quran Feast. We're back to our weekly study with Dr. Yamina. And again, we are going to explore Quranic wisdom by zooming in on some crucial key central principles and concepts in the Quran. And this time, the 20th word with from Risale-i-Nur, the words by Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. As you might recall, we studied 19th word before Ramadan, and that was dedicated to the Prophet ﷺ and the evidences, proofs, if you will, of the Prophet's messengership or prophethood of Muhammad ﷺ. And one of the key things that I recall in that study was the key point about Muhammad ﷺ is that with the message he brought, the universe, the world, our lives transform because we get to see the world as it is. Without that light, without that message, we don't see the world as it is. We see it through the distortions of our heedlessness, through the distortions of our superficial vision. The world looks like a place of mourning. Things are coming and then going, and there is good and there is bad and ugliness and injustice. It doesn't seem to make sense. Everything seems futile, lonely, disconnected. And with the message that the Prophet ﷺ brings, the whole reality becomes manifest. And the reality is everything is actually meaningful. It has a purpose of revealing eternal beauty and is wisely placed in the world and has infinite books of wisdom inscribed in them, and human being in their existential plight also become relieved. So in two ways, the Prophet ﷺ's message, as we studied the 19th word, relieves and enlightens. One, by enlightening how the world we live in, the universe we live in, these are not disconnected things in nature, meaningless and futile. They turn out to be actually all interconnected, pointing to a transcendent, eternal, beautiful reality, our Creator and His beautiful names. And the other thing, the second thing that it enlightens, as we discuss, is how our existential plight becomes relieved with the Prophet's ﷺ and his message. Human beings' weakness and vulnerability makes him inferior to all other animals, and his intellect and his reasoning makes things worse without the revelation that the Prophet ﷺ brings. And then with his light, as Sister Sarah had highlighted this phrase when we were studying, illuminated impotence, poverty, and intelligence. Human poverty, weakness, vulnerability, and capacity to think and question becomes illuminated through the Quranic message that the Prophet ﷺ brought. And then we also spent time talking about, as part of this key illuminating message, is that we are meant for eternity and the transience, everything passing, and death is not the last word. And that is an amazing and truthful message that's also brought by the Prophet ﷺ. So in a variety of different ways, we have looked at how the Prophet ﷺ, in addition to his miracles, in addition to being supported by all the previous messengers who claimed the same thing, in addition to being supported by all the luminous scholars who were illuminated by the Prophet ﷺ's legacy after him, in addition to his elevated akhlaq, morals, his message, the message he brought confirms that he is definitely is the messenger of the creator of the heavens and the earth. So this was our journey in the 90s. Well, this was just a glimpse into our journey into the messengership of Prophet ﷺ through 19th word from the Risale-i-Nur by Sayyid Nursi, and we studied it with Dr. Yamina. And if you missed these discussions, they are available on Risale-i-Nur YouTube as recordings, inshallah. So with that, we're going to turn to 20th word that focuses on crucial principles about how to approach the Quran and Quranic stories. I will turn to Dr. Yamina as usual to lead us. Jazakallah khair, and you're welcome to join in with comments and questions. Bismillah. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina, and welcome back. We're happy.
Isra, welcome to everyone. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon all of you, all of us, inshallah. We dearly need His mercy and compassion and help, inshallah. We exist only through His grace, actually. We just, most of the time, unaware of it. Astaghfirullah. So, inshallah, we'll start with this 20th word. Maybe at the end of the 20th word, we can reflect a little bit on the connection between the 19th and the 20th. But as Isra just mentioned, in this 20th word, we are going to learn some very crucial principles that will help us approach the Quran. Actually, we've been practicing these principles in the receiving Nur when we approach any passage from the Quran. So, Bismillah. And it's here it's given as something that is accessible to everyone. There are other works that are much more technical, which introduce it directly as principles of usul al-tafsir. But here it's nice because in a very simple way, we learn how to connect and interact with the Quran in a lively way, inshallah. So, Bismillah, let's read until the first point, the end of the first point, inshallah.
Okay, we have 2 volunteers this time, inshallah. Brother Muhsin, we never had you volunteer, so if you can this time, please go ahead. And thank you, Sarah Ali Naber. You are muted, by the way. Brother Muhsin, if you're reading, we're not hearing you.
Can you unmute, Isra?
I can ask unmute, but he needs to unmute himself. Okay. What did you want to, what could you, okay. He misunderstood the question. He doesn't have
okay, maybe he has something to share. And then
what did you want to say? He would have to text a message, chat. Okay, so we will, if you can type what you wanted to, what that I can meant, we'll be happy to hear your comment. And so, who would like to read?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
The 20th word. This word consists of 2 stations. First station, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. And when we told the angels, prostrate before Adam, they prostrated, except Iblis. God commands that you sacrifice, and this is another ayah, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. God commands that you sacrifice a cow. In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. And yet, after all this, your hearts hardened and became like rocks or even harder. Quran 2, 74. One day, while reading these verses, 3 points were imparted to me from the effulgence of the Quran against the promptings of Satan. His suggestions took this form. He said, "You say the Quran is a miracle and of infinite eloquence, and that it is guidance for everyone at all times. So what is the meaning in its persistently repeating in historical form certain minor events like the following? How is it appropriate to mention an insignificant event like the slaughtering of a cow as though it were something significant, and even naming the important surah, the cow? Also, the event of prostrating before Adam. It occurred in the realm of the unseen. It cannot be understood rationally. It may be submitted to and accepted with certainty only after a strong belief has been attained, whereas the Quran instructs those who use their reasons. In many places it says, "So will you not think?" and refers what it says to the reason. Also, how is it guidance to show certain natural conditions of rocks to be important, which are the results of chance? The points with which I was inspired took this form. First point, in the all-wise Quran are numerous minor events, beyond which are concealed universal principles, and which are shown as the tips of general laws. For example, he taught Adam the names, all of them. Quran 2:31. This is the teaching of the names, which was a miracle of Adam before the angels, because of his ability to be vicegerent of the earth, and was a minor event. But it forms the tip of a universal principle, which is as follows. It was the teaching, due to man's comprehensive disposition of countless sciences and numerous all-embracing branches of knowledge about the universe, and extensive learning about the Creator's attributes and qualities, which afforded man superiority over not only the angels, but also the heavens and earth and mountains, and the question of the bearing of the supreme trust. And like the Quran states that through his comprehensive disposition, man is a spiritual vicegerent of the earth. So the minor event of the unseen of the angels prostrating before Adam and Satan not prostrating is the tip of a broad and universal observed principle. These hint at an extensive truth, which is as follows. Sarah, do you want to pick up? By mentioning that, go ahead. By mentioning, oh, sorry. Okay, I'm stopping now.
By mentioning the angel's obedience and submission before the person of Adam, and Satan's pride and refusal, The Quran makes understood that most of the physical beings in the universe and their non-physical representatives, the Quran makes understood that most of the physical beings in the universe and their non-physical representatives and appointed beings are subjugated to man, and that man's senses are predisposed and amenable to benefiting from all of them, and pointing out what a fearsome enemy and a serious obstacle in the path of man's progress are evil matter and its representatives and evil indwelling spirits, which corrupt man's nature and drive him down wrong paths. The Quran of miraculous exposition, while speaking of a minor matter with Adam, peace be upon him, converses in elevated fashion with the whole universe and all mankind.
Thank you. So we understand at the beginning these three ayats, or actually it's let's say passages, because it's not the whole ayah, are mentioned here for a purpose, and the purpose we will see in this first actually first station, not only in this first. Sa'id al-Nursi, rahimahullah, he says, one day while reading these verses, 3 points were imparted to me from the effulgence of the Quran against the promptings of Satan. So here, there in another part in the Risale-i-Nur, in this tafsir of Imam Nursi, he talks about the purpose and the wisdom in the creation of Satan. So following Satan is what we are warned against in the Quran. Do not follow in the steps of Satan. But the creation, the existence of Satan in our lives is something that is has lots of benefits. It's wisdom and mercy from Allah. It gives us the opportunity to ask questions, because Satan whispers to us and makes us doubt something. So we start asking a question. What does it mean? Why does it seem sometimes things may seem inconsistent, or we don't understand the meaning or the wisdom? So that prompting is what makes us seek guidance, seek more wisdom. And so it like urges us or pushes us onto that path of growing in all kinds of ways, including, inshallah, spiritually, and getting closer and closer to the unfolding of the truth within us and in the world, inshallah. So his suggestions took this form. So this is Satan asking. So maybe in our personal life, we won't say it's shaitan, it's Satan prompting me, because we don't have a clear identification with who we truly are. So we say, this came to my mind. And so Satan said to him, you say the Quran is a miracle, a mu'jiza, and it has infinite eloquence, balagha, and it is guidance, hidayah for everyone at all times. So these three things are very, very important about the Quran. First, it is hidayah, guidance for everyone, for all human beings, for all humanity at all times. This is something that we touched upon many times in the past, especially when we were reading directly from passages from the Quran. And we could see even in the address in the Quran is Ya ayyuhan nas, for instance, all you people. So it's not always talking to the believers or to Muslims, or it's talking to human beings. And it has this infinite eloquence. We have to believe, as far as the language is concerned, we have to believe the experts. But there are two aspects to this. One is the eloquence here, and especially the mu'jiza, the miraculous eloquence.
By saying we need to believe the experts, did you just mean we need to defer to them? Like we
can, yeah, or defer to them and to their work, because
because believe is a strong word that we use in other contexts and other
to defer. And also maybe I would think it depends on the person. For some of us, just to hear about it will not be enough. But even if we are not experts in the language, we can read about someone who is expert and how those experts demonstrate how the words are used in the Quran. For instance, why is a verb is used here and why a participle is used here, and how it affects the meaning in wondrous ways, in ways that it opens the possibility to many layers of meanings and so on and so forth. So it's not just deferring blindly, but relying on their work, because these people, not only they know, they've put lots of work on the language and on the miraculousness of the Quran. This was many centuries ago. It was a hot topic, I'jaz al-Quran. And Ibn Nursi also has a book about I'jaz al-Quran. So I'jaz al-Quran, the miraculousness of the Quran, looks to two things. One is the language. You can't change a word because it will change lots of things. Things are put in a way that the more you learn or someone tells you about the rules of grammar and eloquence, the more you feel the awe at how the wisdom and the beauty and the guidance in it. And of course, it is related to the meaning that is imparted through that word order. And here the word mu'jiza is different than the word miracle. Miracle is more something that refers to something, an event that's marvelous or something that is attributed to some natural cause or something. But mu'jiza as a word itself is derived from the word or the root, let's say, ajaza, mu'jiza, from ajaza, the verb ajaza. And the root is ajaza. When we say ajiz, ajiz is powerlessness, vulnerability. So it means to be incapable of. Someone is ajiz of doing something, he's incapable of doing it. So something is a mu'jiza, is a miracle in this sense, in the sense that everything, all things, all beings, all causes are incapable, are ajiz of making it. So it looks to divine power primarily, and to all the beautiful names. So everything is ajiz, is incapable of creating anything. So we call everything that is created is a mu'jiza, because no one can make it, however tiny it is, even if it's a small particle. No one can make it, because if you remember in the 33 windows, we saw how the maker of one single tiny thing can only be the maker of the whole, because there is nothing, however tiny it is, that can exist on its own independently of the rest. Everything is interconnected. Let's call it the principle of interconnectedness. And everything is interdependent in a way. And as far as the i'jaz, this the Quran being a miracle, being a mu'jiza, it brings to mind the famous challenge passages in the Quran, the challenge verses, ayat in the Quran. So there is ayah 88 of Surah Al-Isra, Surah 17, when we are told, say, if all humankind and the jinn would come together to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce its like, however much they helped each other. So this is a big challenge, saying if all humankind, all jinn, all whatever you have, come together to produce something like the Quran, they cannot produce it. This is very categorical. However much they help each other. So it's an open challenge and saying, go ahead, you can all help each other, you do whatever you want, you cannot help. In Surah Al-Tur, Surah 52, ayah 33, 34, we are told, if they say he has made it up himself, if they say that the Prophet ﷺ has made the Quran up, they certainly do not believe. Let them produce one like it if what they say is true. And no need to go into the detail, but in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, eloquence and of language, of expressing, especially in Arabic, eloquence means you want to use the least words to convey the most meaning, was something that was very valued and people were very good at it. People who were, and the better you were at it, the more you are an important person. I guess now it's also important, but it's not in different ways, but still eloquence, the art of using words is very, I think it's always very important. So now in these two ayat, it's referring to the whole Quran, but in another ayah, in Surah Hud, which is 11, ayah 13, then it doesn't talk about the whole Quran. It says only 10 chapters, 10 surah. Or do they say that he, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, has devised it? He made it up? He wrote it? Say, bring 10 invented chapters like it. You make up also 10 chapters and let's compare it. And call for help on whomever you can besides God, if you are truthful. So now it's reduced from the whole Quran to 10 chapters. And then in another, the final one is to produce a single chapter, a single surah. So there are two ayats that refer to a single surah. One is Surah Al-Baqarah, 2 ayat 23, and we are told, and if you are in doubt about what I have revealed to my servant, to my worshipper, bring a single chapter like it and call your witnesses besides God if you are truthful. And in Surah 10, Surah Yunus, ayah 38, also we are told, or do they say he has devised it? Say, then produce a single surah like it and call on anyone you can besides God if you're truly telling the truth. And what is interesting is that a single surah is in the Quran, the shortest surah is Surah Al-Kawthar. It consists of only 3 short verses, 3 short ayahs. So when it's saying just produce one single chapter, this can be something very short. Say 3 sentences, but they have to match what is in the Quran. So this is very powerful because so far, especially at that time, it was important to, if they could, they would have, because everyone could weigh down and understand. They could compare. They have enough familiarity with the language and the eloquence, and that they could say, oh yes, this is just as good. But no one could produce anything like that.
And Dr. Yamina, that goes back to what you had explained earlier in previous halakas, that it's because eloquence is not only in the poetic expression, eloquent expression, but it's in the content of the message, right? Eloquent is in the meaning, and that's something we really dwelled on when we were studying the 19th word together. The message that the Prophet brings, it coheres with the reality of the world and ourselves, and
that's the biggest miracle.
Yeah, and there is no way of attaining it without seeing this world as pointing to something.
There is if there is no content, no wisdom, no meaning.
Yeah.
Even if it were possible, we don't even know if it's possible to have that beauty of expression.
It won't be eloquent in this margin.
It won't be mu'jiza, because you will say it will be used to say nonsense or something very trivial or something like that, or that doesn't matter. But the message of the Quran is more than relevant. It is something that is indispensable. It's like we are in darkness and suddenly the light is on. Everything is meaningless and purposeless, and suddenly there is meaning, and this meaning pertains to akhirah, to eternal life, and to the most beautiful names of God that we are created with. That longing, that need, that deep desire for these names that are not only beautiful and that speak to our hunger for them, but also they are lasting. They're just incomparable. Yeah, thank you. So here the question is, what is the meaning of in the Quran's persistently repeating in historical form some certain minor events? So he's saying, first, the event that's talking about is something minor. Adam alayhi salam happened to have some interaction with the angels or not. So, okay. And it is historical because it's in the past. So it seems irrelevant in 2 ways. First, it happened in history, and what is it to me? Something happened to some guy, as if. The question is presented this way. But we do get doubts like this. And it's not bad to get the doubts as long as we use it to follow up and seek guidance and seek answers. But if we take it for granted and there is a doubt, therefore, this can't be right, then that's the misguidance that we are warned against. Do not follow blindly in the steps of shaitan. Just because you had a doubt, it doesn't mean now it's reality. It's good. That doubt is a new question. It is a means for the truth to unfold at a newer level, expand and become closer to us. For the light, it's like a dimmer And each time we ask those questions and we get an answer, we are inspired with an answer. It's like the light becomes brighter and brighter, inshallah.
And I think maybe this is maybe a small point, but that's why he's phrasing it like this, to be truthful. His suggestions took this form. So he's not saying word by word, like direct quote from the Satan. It must have been the kind of suggestions or the doubts that came to him must have been more, in a more kind of negative form. Therefore, this can't be really eloquent and so on. But he kind of rephrases it as an opening. How is it appropriate to mention this insignificant event? How is it that the Quran says use your reason all the time, but then we can't really reason about Adam and angels interacting? This prehistory, like before primordial time, we can't access that. How come? Like, this is beyond rational analysis, because it's not something we can perceive, and yet you say so. He kind of takes it takes those suggestions. I'm guessing this is just somewhat a speculation, but those suggestions must have been kind of more in a more kind of misguided or biased way. But he is kind of rephrasing it in a way that the questions are there, but as questions and not necessarily excuses to kind of run away from the Quran or accuse the Quran. How is it rational? How is it making sense? And how is it a guidance?
You mean he's converting it into something that amenable?
Yeah. Because he doesn't say this is what he said. Like, I think he doesn't want to lie. Like, this isn't what he exactly said word by word. Or this is what I don't know. But he said his suggestions took this form. So he's kind of phrasing it in a way that the question is really strongly there. But it's opening. It's an opening to higher wisdom, inshallah. And it's really like spot on. I mean, I would like to maybe, I know our time is limited, but like maybe a minute, if anybody else would like to. Do you relate to these questions when you read this ayat, these passages? Like, do you feel that, wow, like these questions come to me, or they make sense? Sacrifice a cow, or your hearts become like rocks, even harder. And then the passage goes on to say, there are rocks that fear God and fall down with the fear of God. What does that mean? The rocks fall. This is what the question is saying. It seems natural. It just falls. And it's saying the rocks are falling with the fear of God or awe of God. What does that mean? Or these are passages really that he's just citing the first verses. Do these questions resonate with you? Just we can take like 1 minute. Ziba is saying all these ayats make us pause. All these ayats make us pause. Okay.
Yes, I would say that we read them expecting something, and sometimes we don't have the training to of what we should do with it, but it makes us pause, as Ziba is saying. And I'm also wondering if Imam Nursi Rahimahullah, do you think he is like the virtue in this passage is that he is taking it seriously, these questions? He's not like he's not and if of his doubts, he's actually taking them as important questions, not as not scoffing at them. Or do you think that he is taking it as like this is what the disbelievers are always coming up with as excuses against the Quran?
What would you say?
Well, I'm starting to say it's the first one. I think that when this comes to him, I think that a virtuous way to interact with one's doubts is like Dr. Yamina was saying, is like, no, this has been sent to me. And if I take it as something that can, if I take the path of choosing that, like, this potential doubt could guide me, but he has to suspend his prior assumptions in order to really, really benefit from, like, confronting his doubts, I believe. I think that if he continues to, if one person, all of us, say that our doubts are, or when we get these doubts that all of us have, if we just say, oh no, this is what the disbelievers are thinking, I'm going to cover it up with my own excuses, I don't think that really leads to deep, genuine belief, or at least a deep, genuine confirmation, and like sorting out one's like incongruencies with belief, what the things that we doubt and the things that we're unclear about. So I'm starting to think it's the first. I think he took this seriously as opposed to scoffing at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you take it seriously and make it a means to ask for answers and therefore for guidance, then there is an expansion and an increase in our confirmation, in our certainty. But otherwise, there is fear, like because there is fear that the doubt will destroy my belief, and that's it's not necessarily a bad intention. It could be that we have not learned to use this as a means to grow instead of hiding and leaving that inside, because it's not, the doubt is not outside there. If it attracted my attention, it means the doubt became mine. It's not like some disbeliever outside saying anything they want. If it attracted my attention, if I said, yeah, how come? And there is fear that it will affect me, and I just, shove it under the rug and I won't deal with it. We can do that temporarily if I don't have the means right now to answer, because sometimes we can't answer all questions. But if we have learned the attitude of being open and just, it's not shoving under the rug, but keep it aside, and I'm waiting for when I grow, it's like a child that doesn't understand everything, and as they grow, things start making sense, then everything changes and everything becomes a means of growth in Iman and in certainty, inshallah.
Inshallah. And Ziba has a comment here. If Allah wanted, these ayat could have been embedded into our heart, but this is Allah's way for making us connect with the Quran. We see how He keeps asking us in the Quran, don't you ponder, don't you reflect? Yes.
Yes, true.
So with that, inshallah, then we can, Zahra is saying, I'm feeling so much relief and peace knowing there is a purpose and message in my doubts. This makes me less fearful about them and more curious about them. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, inshallah. That's a very good attitude, inshallah. So shall we move on to the answer, or the first part?
So the question again, it's here is, so how is it appropriate to mention this such insignificant event, for instance, like the slaughtering of a cow or a calf, as though it were something significant? So what if the people of Moses wanted, or, they were very reluctant, they didn't want to slaughter it, and why did Moses anyway insist? And even if he did, what is it to do with us? That even naming that important surah after this event, and the event of prostrating before Adam, it occurred in the realm of the unseen, as Isra mentioned. So it's not even in history. This is something in pre-existence in this worldly life. And therefore, it seems like, how can we understand this rationally? We cannot even forget about observing it directly. We don't even have indications or anything. So it may be just submitted. Okay, at the most, what can you do? You submit and accept it with certainty only after strong belief has been attained. Someone who has strong belief may be able to accept that, okay, it could have happened.
Or it must happen because I trust the text.
Yeah, but I trust the text. Okay, that's good so far. But then that mentioning in the Quran becomes irrelevant to me. Even if I say, okay, if it's mentioned in the Quran, it must be true. Okay, so where is the wisdom? Where is the mercy? In the Quran, it says that we sent the Quran as mercy, as wisdom, as healing. Where is the healing in this? Because if it seems to me, if it feels like it's totally irrelevant, it has nothing to do with me, then that part of the Quran has not been sent to me yet. I have not received it yet. But here, that's okay. But if I say that some parts of the Quran, like in this question, the assumption is they have nothing to do with us, then it becomes a matter of principle. It's a matter of, it's not me who is not yet ready. It's the message that is irrelevant, which is totally, totally different. And it's a huge claim. It's totally negates and invalidates the claim that this is a miracle, universal guidance at all for everyone at all times. All that is totally becomes not true anymore. And he's saying, not only that, the question is saying, actually, the Quran is contradicting itself. It keeps telling us, instructs us, those who use their reason. In many places, it says, أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ أَفَلَا يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, things like, it's repeated a lot, especially أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Don't they use their intellect? عقل? Will you not think? Will they not think? And he says, so how can we reason or think about something that belongs to the realm of the unseen, that happened before before coming to earth? And also, how is it guidance to show certain natural conditions of rocks to be important? It's saying your hearts, and then comparing them to rocks, which are the result of chance. So we may not say chance, but still, just because we are not using the word, because I'm a Muslim, I don't believe in chance, but we may still perceive things as it feels like it's happening without any intervention here and now, always, constantly, as things that are just happening. Because that's, again, I want to emphasize, that's because I perceive myself as living and breathing and being, existing independently of my Rabb. I forget that he's my sustainer. I forget that all the things that I need to be able to breathe right now, I take it for granted. And when we forget that, we forget it about the things happening around us, and it seems everything is happening so easily, as Imam Nursi says, it happens so easily for the awake, for the muhsin. It is a sign and evidence to all-encompassing absolute power. But for the heedless, it becomes something that makes us take things for granted. So the first point is going to take in each point one of the examples in the ayat mentions at the beginning and gives an answer. And the answers are actually quite shortened because many of these topics have been discussed in other places in more details. So the first one he's saying, in the all-wise Quran, there are numerous minor events, minor in the sense that they are not universal, it's talking about one thing, behind which are concealed universal principles, and we are shown as the tips of general laws. So it's a minor event, but this minor event is a part of a law, a universal principle, a universal law. And these laws let's not think about them like the so-called laws of nature. This is more like the laws of the beautiful names of God that Imam Nursi again talks about somewhere else, the laws of power, of divine mercy, the law of wisdom. Everything looks to wisdom. Everything is connected with power, with beauty, they look to the beautiful names of God. So he's saying, so this is not learning, I learned a lesson from this event. This is much more. This event is the tip of a general law.
It's instantiating, as it were, it's an example of a larger phenomenon, one instance of a larger.
So it's not just me trying to get a lesson from this. Usually that's how we understand those stories, because we feel the wisdom and I say there is something for me to learn, which is good, but there is something even deeper and even more universal, more comprehensive going on here.
And this is a very principle.
Oh, this is very profound.
Yeah. You know, you're going to unpack it, I know, but it's just, I wanted to highlight this, that it is, we are getting here a very precious principle in approaching the Quran, to see the Quran, even when it looks like it's talking about a very specific, very particular event. You know, there is a passage that talks about a woman, you know, coming to the Prophet and over about a divorce issue, something, an oath that her husband took or something, and she gives, and you're like, okay, it's a very specific event, and yet if we have this principle, then we can apply it everywhere, that even if it looks like a very specific event or a very specific interaction or story, angels are interacting with Adam alayhi salam, or something happening between Musa alayhi salam and his people, these are actually, they seem to be minor events, which was in the question raised, like why insignificant minor events are being brought up in this text if it is so, you know, means of guidance. Well, because those specific events are actually tip of an iceberg. They are actually tips of universal principles that we need to understand to make sense of our existence, this world. This is the thesis, as you would say. This is the thesis, right, Dr. Yamina? And then it's going to unpack this principle.
Inshallah. And I'm thinking maybe we need to stop here and carry on next time.
It's almost 10. Yeah. I wonder if because he only cites a sentence, I wonder if we can actually look at the overall passage and then leave it there. Would that be?
Which passage? Sorry.
This is, for instance, he taught Adam the names, all of them. Surah Baqarah, verse 31.
You can look at it next time. But also there are one thing that I also wanted to remind ourselves, which we always talk about. For instance, in this case, when the Quran is talking about Adam alayhi salam, it also there is the same story that refers to Adam alayhi salam is also repeated in another form, but the subject is not Adam alayhi salam, but human being in general. And so from there, and in some cases they are mixed, and so you understand that Adam he represents the potential of every human being. All humanity, each one of us is potentially Adam alayhi salam. And inshallah, next time we will look at the text, the ayat in the Quran, and see how that's weaved in the text in a clear way. So we understand how when we read the Quran that way, then we won't ask the question this way anymore, because it's not an event that looks to a minor event, because Adam alayhi salam represents any one of us. So we start having new questions. How is this related to me? When was I taught the names? What are these names that I've been taught? Or like the slaughtering of the cow, like we start asking different questions. Like once we understand the principle for Adam, then we take the principle and apply it for all the prophets and all the stories in the Quran. And all these principles are going to be used at the same time, weaved at the same time. And I take Musa alayhi salam is me, his people is me. Potentially there is a potential in me that can follow Musa alayhi salam, and potential in me that can that follows sometimes and can follow his people that are arguing with him. And so we start asking questions like, so what is my cow? How am I making something, deifying it, get into this cow that I am unwilling to slaughter? Remember, and then slaughter will remind us of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Slaughtering was related to shirk, to idols, to when we make something into a potential idol, we deify things. And things start connecting to each other. With these principles, we learn the art of reading and interconnecting things until it becomes like, I was going to say a miracle. Everything starts lighting up and everything is related to everything else. Inshallah.
Inshallah, that's exciting in a spiritual way. There are two text chats. Inabe said, maybe this principle has changed the way I perceive my existence. Yeah, possible, I think. The way principle seems here is like as if it's revealing something fundamental to the way things are, to the way the universe is sustained, like the principle of justice or principle of compassion, or even something, I don't know what Dr. Yamina would say, but even those smaller ideas, apparently smaller, but with gratitude, that will be increased. That's a principle about the way world is created and sustained. If you're grateful, it will be abundant and increased. So
it's a law of
creation, as it were.
of justice and wisdom and gifting, givenness and ikram, generosity.
Yeah.
It requires that when there is gratitude, this happens when we forget about gratitude, or sometimes we even complain, which is even worse, then this will happen. Those names require that those consequences. The more we start seeing them as laws of those names, the more we become more attuned to the laws of the universe. Just like there are laws that are, we don't throw things because we know they will break. We learn those laws at a higher level, emotional and spiritual level. We start learning these laws as well. It comes together with an increase in awareness, inshallah. But this endeavor, this seeking of understanding will also prompt us to want to how do you say, commit to be more, to live more consciously, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And that's why when we forget and we find ourselves, we fell back into that egocentric little world, we make istighfar. And the more istighfar we make, inshallah, we'll fall less often and not as deep each time, inshallah.
Inshallah. So Inab also said, expect miracles. Going forward, inshallah, we'll expect.
Inshallah.
Seeing miracles.
And later, there will be a time where wherever you look, there is a miracle. Inshallah.
Inshallah. So yeah.
Inshallah, we will feel it, just not know it, inshallah.
Inshallah. So with this introduction session, let's say, we are going to pause here. It's past 10 o'clock. We are all invited to explore these passages ahead of time. So the verse that's cited here is Surah Baqarah 31. But if you get a chance to look a couple verses before, after, and see the kind of overall, there's a whole story around it, and that things might make more sense. Also, as it was shared in a newsletter, the link is there for today's text. It's also in the chat box if you want to save. And if anybody would like to do some reflection and would like to share next time, Dr. Yamina, you're most welcome. So with that, inshallah, we're going to stop here. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina. Bismillah. And Jazakumullah khair, everyone, for joining us and for the comments and readings. Assalamu alaikum.
وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين. في أمان الله. السلام عليكم everyone.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Thank you.